Welcome, everyone. This is Tech Forward, VISTECH's first of our strategic quarterly technology webinars. Today's topic is going to be the Windows 10 end of life and what that means for you personally, for your business. We will help you work towards getting off Windows 10 as its end of life comes around. All right, to start off with some housekeeping. First and foremost, this session is recorded and chat and video is disabled. Go ahead and use the Q&A feature that you see along the top of Teams to ask a question. We have a Q&A session at the end of this webinar, so feel free to ask at any time during the presentation, and we will get to your questions at the end.
Hey everybody, my name is Kyle, and I am joined here with Tyler, who was just speaking a moment ago. And I am a systems architect here at Visual Technologies, and Tyler is our cybersecurity technician. And so I just wanted to talk just a little bit about VISTECH. So VISTECH has been in the Hartford area for over 30 years and is an IT company that is focused on helping businesses grow. We provide managed IT solutions, custom software solutions that are geared for increasing productivity and mitigating risks for small to medium-sized businesses. And so that being said, we wanted to go over today's agenda.
So today we're going to step through three different things. We're going to start off with the Windows 10 end of life and kind of explain what that actually means and why it's happening. Once we get through that, we're going to walk through the requirements for computers to be compatible with Windows 11. There are some specifics there that are a little bit technical that we will cover just to make sure that you are all up to speed as to what your computers need to be Windows 11 compatible. And then finally, we'll get into that Q&A session at the end there.
I would like to talk about the topic of just understanding what is Windows 10 end of life. I mean, what does it actually mean for something to become end of life? So as we all know, Windows 10 will be end of life in October of this year. And so just in general, when a product reaches its end of life, it's usually at a point when the manufacturer or vendor stops supporting that product. And this could be, related to software. And in this case, it's related to software with the actual operating system Windows 10. And so when this end of support happens, this means that the vendor is no longer supplying updates, patches, or any type of technical assistance towards the product. And so I would like to also talk about what is the consideration of the life cycle, as you could say, of a product. And so in this particular case with software, there can be several phases that are included in the life cycle of product. So this includes development, general release, maintenance, and end of support or end of life. And so just to talk a little bit about the development process, this is the initial phase where the software is designed, built, and even tested. And so this is before public release, and this is also can include different versions of the product. Like some people may be familiar with the terms of like an alpha version or a beta version of a product, where they're able to apply early fixes, right? Like as they test the products, they come across different bugs, and they can actually try to make product as stable as possible before the general release. And so in the next phase, obviously, is when the product actually goes live to the public. So it's an official launch state, there's public availability, and people are able to actually begin using the software in the real world application. And so once a product is on the market for some time, it kind of rolled over into this maintenance phase. And this is during this phase, the software is usually, regularly patched, right? So there's updates that are applied that are for bug fixes, for security vulnerabilities that may be found, but it also may even introduce new features. And over time, during this time, the software kind of matures into this like product that usually requires less and less updates and patching. And so eventually it reaches this phase of end of life, end of support. And so this is like at the end of the product lifecycle, this is usually brought on by the vendor because of the release of a new version of the software that's like a major upgrade to it, or they are moving away from that product line altogether. There's different things that would bring on the end of a product, but this usually is the end of the product at that point. So there's like no more support for it. And so this is practically where we are with Windows 10. Microsoft is made the decision to move away from Windows 10 product line, is introducing and has introduced the Windows 11 product line as its successor. And so what we really want to focus on more so is, why we should not keep using, an end of life product such as Windows 10. So Tyler, would you better go through that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so there's a few main reasons why you really want to not use Windows 10 after its end of life. First and foremost is just going to be security. Security patches will end for the Windows 10 operating system as of October 2025, which means that every month that goes by after October is going to increase your risk when you're browsing online. In 2024, Windows 10 had 1,360 vulnerabilities in total publicized by Microsoft. That is more than 100 per month. And of those vulnerabilities, 435 of them were remote code execution vulnerabilities. A remote code execution vulnerability is a vulnerability where if a hacker knows how to exploit it, they get to execute whatever software they want on your computer. You will end up with a virus, some spyware, anything like that. So every single month that goes by after October 2025, I'd expect there to be potentially 100 new vulnerabilities in the Windows 10 operating system that will just not get patched. It'll become less and less secure over time as Windows 10 gets past its end of life. But it's also starting to happen now. Microsoft has started to kind of drag its feet on security fixes for Windows 10. We're seeing in the patch notes a lot of statements along the lines of currently security updates for Windows 10 systems are not immediately available, but they will be released as soon as possible. I've seen that more and more over the course of the last 4 or 5 months. So it is very clear to me that Microsoft has no interest in prioritizing fixing Windows 10. They are mainly focusing all their efforts on Windows 11, and Windows 10 just kind of picks up security patches when they can get to it. And then the kind of nicer to have thing as well is you're going to be missing some quality of life updates in Windows 11. There's some new features. There's a few that are cosmetic that are nice, tabs in the File Explorer, a couple of different things with the right-click menu, things like that. But the bigger one is, again, security related. The biggest requirement for Windows 11 is going to be what's called the Trusted Platform Module inside of your CPU. The Trusted Platform Module is where your computer securely puts values like your password, security keys related to any logins that you have. It stores them in the TPM, the Trusted Platform Module, and that makes you more secure overall. It is a requirement on any machine that is Windows 11 compatible, and it definitely bumps up your security as you are using the operating system. So that's going to be one of the bigger features of Windows 11 there. So let's move on to the actual requirements. What do you need to do to get to 11 before you are ready to stop using your Windows 10 machine? So first and foremost, you got to make sure that you're fully up to date on Windows 10. You can hit the Start menu and you can do the Check for Updates option on Windows 10. We have found there have been some issues in the field for the machines that we monitor. If they're not fully up to date on Windows 10, they will fail the Windows 11 update. If you are a business that has our remote monitoring software on your computers, you don't have to worry about this step. We maintain all of the machines and keep them fully up to date for Windows 10. So that is not a factor that you need to worry about. But if your machines are not monitored by our remote monitoring software, do a check for updates. Make sure that your Windows 10 machine is fully up to date for all available Windows 10 patches before you proceed to trying a Windows 11 update. The next part of things is going to be hardware requirements. There are 3 data points that are very important to know about when you are considering upgrading a machine to Windows 11. The easiest place to find these is going to be in the Task Manager. You can do the classic Control-Alt-Delete and click Task Manager, or you can use the search menu and search for Task Manager. And then you're going to want to flip over to the Performance tab, like you see in the screenshot on the right. And on this Performance tab, there are 3 highlighted data points that you need to know about and understand to ensure that your machine is Windows 11 compatible. First up is going to be on the right there, the highlighted number 7700. This is an example of a Intel CPU, and the first number in that highlighted portion there denotes the generation of the Intel processor. In 7th generation and older processors, like you see here on screen, unfortunately, they did not have the TPM that's required for Windows 11. So you are looking on your computer for a number that begins with 8 or higher. A good rule of thumb at this point is 8th generation was about 5 years ago. They're about 5 years old now. So if you know that you've bought your computer within the last 5 years or so, odds are you're going to be all set here, but it's worthwhile to check that highlighted value to make sure that the number starts with an 8, denoting an 8th generation or newer processor. Next up, on the left-hand side of that screenshot under memory, you'll see the 31.9 highlighted. That is your RAM on the computer. We have found in the field that 8 gigabytes of RAM is not enough to really successfully run Windows 11. The minimum requirement nowadays is going to be 16 gigabytes of RAM. If you want to think about your computer as your office and you're getting work done, RAM is how big the desk is that you're working on. The more RAM you have, the more tasks that you can do simultaneously. So we find that if you only have 8 gigabytes of RAM, you really need to upgrade to 16 gigabytes to have a smooth experience on Windows 11. It's a pretty minor hardware upgrade. It's normally in the ballpark of about $50 for the actual hardware itself. And then it's only a few minutes of effort to actually do the upgrade. So if you find that you only have 8 gigabytes of RAM on a computer, definitely contact us. We can help you out with getting it upgraded to ensure that you're going to have a smooth experience on Windows 11. And the final data point that you see highlighted is SSD. That stands for solid state drive. That is the newer and significantly faster type of hard drive that are in modern computers that you really need to have to be compatible with Windows 11. If you don't have an SSD and you have a traditional HDD, you would see that that's the hard drive. That is the spinning disks from older machines. You're going to have a tough time on Windows 11. It's just doing so much now that your hard drive is going to really limit your capabilities if you have a HDD, a traditional hard drive. You're going to want to look for an SSD in this highlighted spot here to make sure that you are Windows 11 ready. This is also another really easy hardware upgrade. Doesn't take very long. Normally it's in the ballpark of $70 to $100 for the piece of hardware and only a few minutes of labor on our part here. So definitely ask if you see a HDD in that location and you're interested in getting your machine up to date. So we know, hey, you got to have Windows 10 fully up to date before you update. And then those 3 data points, remember, CPU, memory, and having an SSD. You want to have a CPU that is an 8th gen or greater. You want to have 16 gigs of RAM, and you want to make sure you have an SSD to have a good experience with Windows 11. And with that, I think it is time for us to move on to our question and answer.
Okay, everyone. So it looks like we have a couple of questions that come in, and so we want to kind of take them in order as they were received. And so I'm just going to go with the first one here. And the first question that I have is, do I need to manually update to Windows 11? So if you're working with Visual Technologies like VISTECH as your managed service provider, then the answer to that will be no. We would help you update all of your Windows 10 machines to Windows 11. And we have processes in place, we have plans in place that would automate this process for you, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, if you're referring to your home machine, VISTECH is more than happy to help you with your personal machines, and we're able to help you to assess the hardware that you have, just like Tyler had outlined. We need to look for the memory, the CPU, make sure you have a compatible hard drive, and we would be able to then help you update your Windows 10 to a Windows 11. So with that being said, we do have another question here.
Yeah, the next one looks like it's a classic here. So are there any programs that I use that won't work on Windows 11? Windows 11's been out for 4 years now. And so far, we haven't really found any major issues with normal day-to-day software. Almost all major vendors of software have updated their software to be compatible with Windows 11. We have found there have been a few very niche, very small software programs that have some compatibility issues with Windows 11, but odds are you aren't affected. And even if you are affected, there are some workarounds that we can work through, and we can absolutely help you out with that. If you bump into something that stops working when you upgrade to Windows 11, that's the sort of thing that we can definitely help you out on and get you back up and running as soon as possible.
Okay, so we have another question here. So it says, what's the best way to back up my computer before doing the Windows 11 upgrade? So that's an excellent question. So just to put it out there, we haven't run into major issues when it comes to upgrading from Windows 10 to Windows 11. Windows doing the upgrade process usually does allow for Windows 10 to even keep current files that are on the system. If there are programs that are incompatible, those programs are usually either flagged before the update can proceed. So it'll give you like a notification, and they would have to be either uninstalled or you would end up having to have them uninstalled during the update process. And so those programs would have to be reinstalled. So as far as programs are concerned, the only options you have there are being able to have the installation ready in order to reinstall it or find a compatible program. Now, when it comes to files, there are several ways to back those up that are built into Windows. So Windows still does actually have this the native program called Windows Backup that is found underneath the control panel on the system there, and that's something that you can find when you search. And so another option is to use a third-party product like Acronis. So I know that for our clients, we do have clients that use Acronis to back up their PCs. And Acronis actually does and will back up both programs and files that are on the system. So just to kind of reiterate, there's not much data loss when it comes to upgrading between Windows 10 and 11. And so I wouldn't focus too much on trying to create a backup. However, it's always good to have a backup, right? So in general, you should have some way of backing up your PC. And if you need help, always feel free to reach out to VISTECH, and we'll have a way of helping you find a solution that works best for your environment in order to have everything secure and backed up the way that you would like to have it. Okay, so we have.
Yeah. So the next question is an interesting one here. Does Windows 10 give me any better options for working remotely when I want to access company data? The answer is really no, not Windows 11 specifically at this time. But we have worked really hard here at VISTECH to transition all of our clients and any sort of shared company files up to Microsoft 365 and SharePoint. It facilitates significantly better remote work. It facilitates joint editing of files. There are steps that you can take that would really make your business significantly more work from home, remote work friendly. And that can be a part of planning around getting rid of your Windows 10 machines, upgrading to Windows 11, and maybe becoming more of a hybrid model for your business there and working remotely, being able to facilitate work from home. Looks like we got one more question, Kyle. You want to answer that one?
Sure. So this last question we have here is about how long does it take with Windows 10 to update to 11? So it's how basically the question is how long does it take to actually do the update? So this depends on the performance of your current computer. With my experience, it's usually not recommended to update systems that are too old. I know that you may have a system that's running Windows 10, but I want to kind of reiterate that Tyler did point out you do need to have a certain amount of memory and hard drive and CPU. And so even though your system may be running Windows 10, it may still not be worth updating it to 11. And so in that case, you would have to seek purchasing new hardware, purchasing new desktop or laptop in order to facilitate the new version of Windows. But typically, on an average PC, it could take up to a full hour to actually do the update, and this includes the downtime for performing the update when it comes down to downloading it and actually having it run through the installs. The machine does reboot several times during the process, so it may look like it's done. Initially it gives you what I consider to be a splash page that will show, oh, we're installing Windows 11, and it will have a progress bar, and you'll get to 100%. And you're thinking, oh, great, machine reboots, and then it goes into another cycle. Usually, it will show different percentages before it reboots. So usually it's like it gets to like about 30%, and it does another reboot, then another 30% does a reboot, and then that last 30% is usually when it actually finishes the install and gives you a nice login screen there. So, but if you're working with VISTECH, we have remote tools that can automate this, so they can actually run overnight, right? So isn't that great? So you don't actually have to spend the hour trying to look at the PC. So it does take about again, it doesn't take that hour for it to do the install, but if you need help, again, just feel free to reach out, and we could take care of this for you. All right, so I think that was it for all of the questions. So we just wanted to thank everyone for joining the webinar today and giving us your time. We look forward to our next webinar, which, as you can see, is on August 12th of 2025. And thank you for joining, and you guys have a great day.
Have a good one, everybody.